Somebody's. Right.
Okay. All right. So, all right. Welcome everyone to it's March, right?
Yeah.
Wow. So the March 2023 meeting of LAPSA/ETSA. My name is Ben Taylor. I'm one of the co-organizers here. Standing to my right is another co-organizer and board member, Jonathan Evenden, who's going to be our speaker tonight. We also have present a board member from LAPSA National, Aaron Hahn. So if anybody has any questions about either LAPSA ETSA or LAPSA National, right, approach us. We might have answers, right?
We'll make them up in your number.
That's right. So with that, we can actually thank the Tech Systems folks for the pizza this evening, and but they couldn't be here. They had another event, so they put me in charge. So I added another item to my resume. So in addition to being LAPSA janitor, Little Blue cooler ringer, it's also the pizza fetcher. So expanding skills, widening horizons. Right, that's what we're about. Are there any announcements? And at this point, if you're hiring, right, for example, you can say, "Hey, we're hiring. We're looking for people." So, Abhi, when you go.
Sure. My name is Avi. I think some of you guys have heard what we're doing. We're a tech startup that got some VC funding. We're automating HVAC systems for data centers. Our AI lead Chase is really looking for AI automation engineers, people with Python experience. We have a couple of job descriptions on our page. So if you guys know anyone that has that experience, love to send the job description. To see if it's a fit. And they're not working for pizza in here, even though we're a startup, we do pay.
It's the incentive. All right. Are there other announcements? Most of our announcers aren't here this evening. So, all right. Well, with that, I'm going to hand it over to our speaker this evening, Mr. Jonathan Evenden, who's going to tell us all about everything we need to know, his experience, strength, and hope resume.
Oh, lovely.
Yeah.
All right. Glad to be here in person. I've been remotely for the most part for a while. Got to have the winning combination of being awake enough to drive and having the time to drive. Yes.
Are you sharing the screen?
Yes. Yeah. So I'm Jonathan. I own a company called Aegis IT, and we do both break-fix IT work as well as equivalently MSP type work up in Kingsport. So we're up in Tri-Cities. We do have clients down this way, so I'm down in Knoxville on occasion, but we're mostly Kingsport, Bristol, Johnson City, where our client base is. And then we take care of a lot of Southwest Virginia and so on and so forth, because there's just not a whole lot of us in the area. So, real quick. So my personal background, I've been doing this since 2012. So we'll be at 11 years in May, which is way beyond my wildest dreams. I started it because I got fired from my previous job. That's always fun. Best thing that ever happened to me, just about, because I've wanted to go do work for myself for a long time. And that was the unexpected impetus to go out and do it, whether I wanted to or not. So it worked out really well. I was really happy. I hired 3 people last year because last year was crazy. So we're up to about 6 employees now. I'm hoping we'll have enough work to hire more, but it's the start of this year has been not as good as last year. So we'll see. Prior to that, I was at a IT consulting company in New Jersey. So we moved down to the area from right outside New York City. I spent a lot of time in New York City because we had a lot of New York City clients. I don't miss it for anything. The food was good. The traffic was terrible. And the people were jerks. So I personally like it down here so much more than where we were. But it was a great experience for learning how to cut your teeth on IT and how to deal with some very unpleasant people and tough situations. So I'm thankful for the experience, but I would never want to go back there. Prior to that, I was doing help desk. So got to start at the ground level. So basically, this is essentially what the core of my resume would be, because we're talking about resumes tonight. So it's a mixture of things. Basically started doing help desk, moved into consulting, and now I work for myself. So basically, there's a a story of progression and growth, which is one of the core things that you want to make sure you're doing and demonstrating on your resume. And hopefully that there is growth. And so, you know, we're up to 6 people. I've got some other subcontractors that I use on a regular basis, some programmers and stuff like that. So we're doing really well, and I'm really thankful for it. All right, so let's talk about resumes. Really the first question is, what is the purpose of your resume? Because what you're intending to do with it is going to help shape how you type it up. So, quick question, who here has a resume? Show of hands. Who's ever written up a resume for yourself? Okay. If more importantly, is your resume current? When was the last time you touched your resume?
Last year, 3 weeks ago.
3 weeks ago. Okay. Okay. That's not a question to see who's getting ready to jump ship. It's a question of, you know, is it something that you've kept up on? So like when I was preparing for this talk, I looked and I'm like, I haven't updated my resume in 11 years because I've been working for myself. And, you know, I have no real reason to go anywhere else because I like working for myself so much. So in my world, in doing sales, my resume turns into what have I done for other clients and how do we build a business? Totally different purpose, because people want to know, are you capable of fixing these things and taking care of our networks and all sorts of stuff? Not, I need this to find a job. I'm basically finding all these little jobs and using that for those purposes. But for us, if you're not the owner of a company and you're just like most people in the world, and you're looking to be just an employee, which is fantastic. The purpose of your resume is really for sales. I know you all like sales. Y'all want to do sales for a living, right? Most technical people hate sales. I don't particularly like sales, but it puts food on the table, so I do it. You know, it's got to get done. Are there things I'd rather be doing than selling? Yeah, there's a lot of things I'd rather be doing than selling, but we got to do it. So I do it and I make the best of it. But yeah, so basically resume is a sales tool. You're selling yourself. You're basically saying, this is an opportunity to, here's who I am. Here's a bunch of things that I've done. Here's reasons why you should give me further consideration. You know what? It's also networking for opportunities that you wouldn't otherwise know about. There's a reason people pay for billboards. There's a reason people pay for TV advertisement, pay-per-click, radio ads, because you don't know who's looking for your services. Same thing with resume. You post a resume, you don't know, you might not know that your perfect employer or somebody that has a really great job or your next advancement is looking for somebody and you've not made contact with them. You're basically trying to, if you're posting on Indeed or some of the other job searching places or resume, you know, place where you can post your stuff, or even LinkedIn, you're basically casting your net broader than you would know from your immediate personal connections. And that's a great thing. And that's not something I necessarily would have thought about 10, 15, 20 years ago. I wouldn't have seen it in those lights. But now that I've had to do a whole bunch of sales and marketing, this is a great way and a very impactful thing that you might not think about. Also, you're basically, if you're posting your resume online, it's effectively the same thing as a billboard or TV or something like a TV ad or radio ad. You're getting yourself in front of people that you don't know that they're looking. And that's a really good thing. And that you could have some great opportunities from that. We have, for example, started doing more paid marketing. I haven't been doing it. So for the first 10 years of business, I really didn't pay for marketing. We did all referrals, word of mouth, BNI, a bunch of things that were very personal and got us connected. And that's great. And we saw growth and we were able to build a business. But that'll only take you so far. Your personal network will only take you so far. To get to the next step, we've been paying for online advertisement, SEO, and I'm thinking about PPC and some other stuff just to be able to get myself in front of people who need our services that I don't know who they are. And that's what your resume can do for you. You know, you can use it to find a better job. You can use it to find a better decision. Maybe you're making a lateral change. Maybe you want to move to a different part of the country. That's what I wanted to do. We'll move from New Jersey down to Bristol. That's what helped me make the connections and get in front of people to be able to make that move. And sometimes life just happens. You know, somebody was talking earlier about a company that was doing really well and then the owner dies. That's a whole bunch of people that now suddenly need to find new work. You know, maybe things are going along and then COVID hits and your business shuts down for a month or 2 or 6 or a year. Maybe something else happens and something catastrophic happens and now you're in a position, it doesn't have to be at work. Maybe it's personal. Maybe a family member gets sick, or someone goes through a divorce, or someone gets cancer, or someone's in a car accident. Like there's any number of life events where everything is going fine, you didn't need it, and now all of a sudden you desperately need one. So that's sort of why I was asking at the start, who's got one and when the last time was that you touched it, because there's very good reasons to keep it current. So that way, if something happens, you're not just sitting there scrambling, oh, I've now got to put together this thing and decide. Because the thing you do like that last minute is usually not going to be very good. Just in general. And you know what? Ultimately, it's there to get you a foot in the door. I've never hired somebody because of the resume, but I certainly turned down people because of the resume. You know, like it's there to, if you're applying for a traditional job, it's there to give someone a reason to take a closer look at you. It's not going to get you a job unless you're just that awesome or you're in that niche of an industry. There are places where just sending a resume is basically all you need. If you show up and you say, hey, I've got a security clearance and I know how to do X, that's a, you know, there are places where that's all you need to do. But that's something specific and that separates you from everyone else, because getting that security clearance is a royal pain. So in general, the majority of the time, this is there to get you a foot in the door, to get you a further conversation, get you further down the process, but it's not going to get you a job itself. Typically. All right. So what I really want to spend the bulk of the time talking about is what makes a good resume. Although we will go over stuff that makes a bad resume at the end. And let me preface this by saying, if you ask 10 people what makes a good resume, you're going to get 10 different responses. There's a good amount of personal preference that goes into this. And there's a good amount of what's subjective. Just be blunt. These are things that I like to see, and these are things that I've done over the years for my own. So these are my principles. Take it with a grain of salt. What I like is probably going to be different than what the next person likes. But if you're sticking to principles like this, you'll be in a much better position than a number of the ones that I've seen. Because I've been in a position where I've seen lots of resumes. I haven't had to give mine out in a while. But with hiring people and whatnot, I've had to review a lot of them. I personally like to keep it to 1 page. And we'll talk about why. 2, if you really need to. And when we're talking about this particular talk, Wesley sent me a resume of somebody who had put together like a 40-page resume. That's not a resume, that's a CV. Yeah. I think I've seen theses, you know, doctoral theses that are shorter than that. That's like somebody who's basically took their live journal feed and printed it out and handed it his resume or Twitter or whatever. You know, they're telling about all the things they had for breakfast every day. Like, that's just insane. That's not a resume. That's a straight to the dumpster. I'm not looking at that. I don't have time for that. You know, like, and the
pros is what Charles Dickens is going to read.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. That's right. So. And I'll go, I've got a separate slide for each one of these. Active language versus passive language. We'll go into detail about that. That's extremely important and a great way to separate yourself from other people. Focus on specific achievements, not on vague abilities. When I'm in a professional networking group called BNI, it's great. One of the things that they train us on is the more specific you get, the better referrals you're going to get. So if I say I want anybody who is a dentist, well, that doesn't really help because, well, everyone knows a dentist. No one's going to come up with a dentist name. If I say I want the office manager of the dentist at this practice, I'm now getting more specific. And you might not know that particular person, but now that I've put the idea of office manager and dentist, now you're thinking maybe of your dentist and who your office manager is. So when you're talking about your resume, the more specific you can get, and including like numbers and whatnot, the better you are, the better you're able to distinguish yourself from everyone else. Match your skills to requirements of the job posting. Basically, make sure you're applying for the right job. Yeah, that would seem like that's a no-brainer, but well, these are people we're talking about here. So just because it might seem like it would be the basics of the basics, I say it because that's not always the case. And then attention to detail. This is where we're talking about like errors and spelling and whatnot. So these are your 5 basic principles. Let's go into the details. First and foremost, I like to keep it to 1 page. Personal preference. I've had a resume at one point that was 2 pages long. I thought it was a bit wordy. And by keeping it to 1 page, it really forces you to be concise. You have this small, because you know, like the job history and that point might take up 1/3 of a regular page. You got all this other stuff you need to take into it. You know, if you have to condense your job history to like maybe 1/3 or half a page, you really have to work it to get to that point. Like you have to really be concise and focus, which is the next bullet point. You have to force you to be relevant. Basically, you're forcing yourself to concentrate on what's most important for this particular job. All right, so that's the longer you get, the easier it is to stray from what's important. So if you're doing a 3 or 4 page resume, it's really easy to go off track and focus on things that aren't important or relevant to the job posting that you're applying for. So if you artificially limit yourself, you're giving yourself these parameters, and it'll force you to distill down to what's the most important for the job posting. Sometimes it's not always possible. That's why I say 2 if you must. But basically, it also makes it easier for the person reviewing it. So if someone's posting a job posting, they might get 100 resumes. They might get 300 resumes. They might have a whole stack. I remember one time we posted, basically a help desk position. I think I got 70 resumes for 1 position. And I'm just like, that's just insane. It was just help desk. Wasn't anything fancy, but people wanted to get an IT in New Jersey, so we had much, right outside New York City, very much higher population density. And so basically, as someone who was looking through 70 resumes, the shorter ones were the ones that I liked. It was much easier to scan and see that the most relevant information was in that resume. So you're essentially, there's a certain sense where you're taking the person who's reviewing that into consideration if you're keeping it focused and tight. And remember, this is not a CV. Don't make it long. Don't list every single thing you've ever done. What you had for breakfast yesterday, we don't care. If you're going to go on the speaking circuit and you're publishing your books, then yes, put together a CV, and that's great. And the CV does have a purpose, but it's not to be mistaken or replaced for a resume. All right. Next, active language versus passive language. This is probably the biggest thing that I see people fail on, besides spelling errors. What I mean by is active language, you're the one doing the action. If it's passive, the actions, you're like partially involved. So like, passive language means the thing is the owner, you might have participated. I've got an example. So basically, you're focusing on what you have done, not things you've been a part of. There's a huge difference between those two, because if you're trying to highlight your accomplishments and achievements, you want to make sure that you're the one doing it and that you're having a direct impact on whatever event that you're describing. Right? If you just merely participated, well, I don't care. I'm not giving you a participation trophy. I want to see that you are the reason why this thing occurred. There's a difference between those two. So let me give you an example here. So if you're not sure, look for the to be, was, were, am, have been. Compare the difference between I project managed custom coding on an e-commerce store that generated $650,000 in sales last fall. It's a project we work for. In this case, the predicate noun is I, meaning me. Project managed is the predicate verb. So I'm project managing. I'm the owner and responsible. And essentially, I'm saying this wouldn't have happened if it wasn't for me. I didn't write the code, but I'm the one who made everything happen. All right, there's a difference between that and an e-commerce store generated $650,000 in sales last fall and had custom code, and I project managed. All right, so in this case, the predicate noun is an e-commerce store, and the predicate verb is generated. And I'm just sort of over here hanging out with the participation badge.
In a run-on sentence.
In a run-on sentence. This is more wordy. This is more awkward. It doesn't flow as well. It doesn't sound as good. So as much as possible, Active language highlights you, and it's clearer to read and understand for the person reviewing it. Passive language means you're just sort of backseating and hanging on and participating, but we don't know how much your contribution helped. So it's your resume. It's there to make you look good. It's there to sell you. Be the star. And we see, like I've seen, it's rare to find somebody who has a whole, it has everything nailed with the active language, and they're the reason for the resume. All right. Focus on specific achievements, not vague abilities. Think about the difference in impact between, I started a company from the ground up and we worked for a bunch of companies. Right? That's great. That's nice. That doesn't tell you anything about us. It's vague. Contrast that with after 11 years, we have over 1,000 nodes and we do work for 150 businesses. That's specific. That tells you something about me. It tells you about the level of success we've achieved, or maybe that's not much success. Maybe in 11 years, I should be at 2,000 nodes. Maybe in 11 years, I should be at 300 clients. I don't know. But we can have something to measure and compare because I've gotten specific on that sentence. And so basically, you're there to make an impact on the person reading your resume. And the more specific you can get, and the more especially on your achievements, the better you are, and the more you'll grab the attention of the person reading it. Can you quantify your work? This is probably the thing that I see technical people struggle with, because you're thinking, well, I manage these servers and we do these processes and we handle these things. But can you quantify how much money have you saved the company? Maybe it's a matter of how many end users do you support? Maybe it's a matter of how many servers have you managed? Maybe it's how many times have you done the needful? That's for Wesley. That's basically, these are ways that you might be able to quantify your work at the company from a technical standpoint and use that to highlight your success in your job or in your previous work. So, and there's more that you can put on here. If you're in sales, if you're doing sales engineer or something like that, you talk about your year-over-year growth, or how many deals you closed, or how much you added to the company bottom line. We'll do the same thing from a technical side. It's just sometimes it's not quite as obvious depending on what you're trying to do and what positions you're trying to do. If you're writing code for a living, you might not necessarily say, oh, I wrote 10,000 lines of code last year, because maybe you can't quantify that, but who cares? Like, in one sense, if you wrote 10,000 lines and 9,000 of it was trash, that's not quite making you look good. But if you wrote 1,000 lines of code, it's better than the guy who wrote the 10,000 lines of code. There's still a way that you can highlight that and show the difference between those two people, right? So be thinking about it in those terms of how can I quantify and what's going to highlight what I'm doing in my current role. Okay. Additionally, match your skills to the requirements of the job posting. Make sure you apply for the right job. And when we had 70 resumes for a clearly stated IT person doing IT work in an IT setting, I got the resume of somebody who was trying to be a lab technician. And I'm like, we're very clearly not a lab. We're not lab technicians. There's nothing that says lab work in here anywhere. There's nothing that says we're working with scientific equipment, or and I'm like, had this person not read? That's a very, very easy hit. That's what's straight in the trash. Right. So basically, when you're working up a resume, think of the resume that you're working on in terms of the job that you're applying for. If you apply for 100 jobs, you should have 100 versions of your resume. And make sure you know which one you used. Because it would be really bad if you use one version on the application and you take a different one to the interview.
Actually, I disagree with that.
Okay.
Because in large companies, in large enterprises, your first hurdle is getting through the HR meeting. The resume you present to HR is going to be the de-technicalized resume. The one you show up to the interview and hand the hiring manager is the one. It's gonna be a different version of the same. I mean, you really wanna show the hiring manager, yeah, you understand. DevOps, or you understand. Some, particular field, agile, that's wasted on the hiring manager that got you, on the HR manager that got you teed up for that. So there's another strategy underneath there that in a single owner company, you're absolutely true, but in a place like Oak Ridge National Lab, you have to weed through the HR people before you get that second look by the hiring.
But so my response to that would be, in that situation, when you're dealing with the HR drones, they're still doing keyword searching
Yeah,
and they're still matching. So if you're not matching your keywords for one versus the other, you really should make sure that whatever you're putting on your resume matches the application that you're applying for.
but knowing my point is knowing the audience, showing up to the interview with a different resume may be the right answer because the hiring manager is going to be a technical person, not an HR group, and you gotta understand how to finesse that half of the game.
Sometimes 10 to 30% of the requirements are sort of wish list, not necessarily what they need, but what they would like to have, they could have, I've seen on the cake. So some of that's also negotiable. Depending on the employer.
Right. And when you've got software that's reviewing it, you still have to make sure you hit the keywords, which I have actually in.
That's
Absolutely.
because the HR people, they're just doing some keyword research, and
Right.
if you hit 89% on their little threshold, oh, okay, it's a candidate, check.
And so the point that I have on this ties into that, because if I'm applying for 3 different companies, they might have the same title, but they might have different job requirements.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to tailor my resume, even if it's the same position, I'm going to have 3 different copies hitting the keywords and highlighting the skills that they're looking for on each of those applications. So that's the point I'm making here.
It's true, but there's sort of 2 different audiences for that at my point.
Okay.
The large enterprises, the HR drones, and
Now, in contrast, the reason I mentioned that is I had a friend in college and he was looking for internships. And he's like, man, I've sent out 100 resumes and I haven't gotten any responses. And I was like, well, what do you mean? Did you change it up? And he goes, no, he sent the same resume to 100 different places and no one got back. I'm like, well, I didn't know much in college, but I could at least know that was not the right way to approach that, because if you're taking the same resume, sending it to 100 different places, like you're not hitting and highlighting the things that you need, and you're not hitting and highlighting the things that they're looking for. So you want to make sure that you're matching to what they're saying, what they're looking for. And so when I was, there've been a couple times in my life when I've had to job search and generate resumes and stuff like that, apply for things. Basically, your best bet is to adjust the resume for each position and then keep track of which version you submitted. That's really my point, because if you, like, for example, I'm in a position where I could apply for a sales engineer, I could apply for a system admin, I could apply for help desk, Kevin help me if I needed it. There's a number of positions that I could very quickly and easily fit into because I do them all right now. If I'm taking a sales engineer position or applying for sales engineer, I'm not going to want to send a system admin resume because they're looking for a completely different skill set. And I'm not going to do something if I'm doing help desk or printer repair and the other things that I can do. Like that, I'm not going to send a sales engineer resume for something that's for help desk. Right. So the idea is that you want to make sure that you're focusing on what they're looking for and, covering the skills and job and show all those things that's going to match what they're looking for. All right. So, and that goes to, given how much automation occurs, if you have the opportunity to use the words in their job posting, that's more power to you. Just don't keyword stuff. That's a quick way to catch you keyword stuff, and that's usually a quick way. What I mean by that is if you hide words in white text down at the bottom or in the margin, stuff like that. The automation software will pick it up, but it might not show up on the resume. But there are tools that will scan for keyword stuffing at this point. So you could use, like, if you're looking for I don't know, Python, and you use Python 10 times in a single paragraph, that could draw attention. And then if you put Python, 50 times at the bottom in 2-point font in white text, well, that'll show up on your resume. You'll certainly hit the keyword on the search, but now you might get flagged for keyword stuff, and that's not a good idea. All right, attention to detail. What I mean by this is no spelling mistakes ever. Don't ever have any spelling mistake. If I see a spelling mistake on a resume, I'm sorry. Like, this is your first impression, and it needs to be good. Now, in most cases, like for someone like me, we're a small company. Everyone I've hired, the resume sort of been a mere formality. Like, they're all like, we're small. I've had to sit down and met with the people I've known or knew of the people, but before I hired them, they're all within my network of people that I know. So like there was a vetting process that occurred long before I hired anyone. That will only take you so far, and that doesn't work out on as soon as you get to a certain size. So, like, if someone sends me a resume and they've got stuff misspelled all over the place, I don't care if they're the best person in the world. That's a pretty quick disqualifier, because if they can't even bother to pay attention to spell check, which if you're doing this in Word, it's going to be like, hey, you have a spelling error. You have a grammar error. Like, you have to click past it and ignore it. If they can't even correct that, well, then they're probably not going to be the type of person that I want to train on all these specific details. We have a lot of very detailed processes that we have to carry through and make sure they're done accurately, or else the networks go down. It's good fun. And make sure that your items are accurate. Don't confuse Java and JavaScript. Make sure that your skills match what you can actually do. Don't lie. If I say I'm an expert programmer in Python because I was able to do hello world once, okay, well, that might get me an interview by saying I'm an expert in Python, but as soon as they start asking me the basics of Python, I'm just gonna, have this glazed look come over my eyes, and I've just wasted everyone's time, including my own. Unless you're going for the fake it till you can make it type of person, which once again, not a great suggestion. But yeah, basically, keep your resume as honest as possible. There are plenty of ways to highlight yourself without lying. Absolutely. You're there to sell the best side of yourself, but if that includes lying, that doesn't bode well for you. And very importantly, get someone to proofread it. Especially if you're in a position where you're job searching, hopefully that's your full-time job. Like, literally, that should be your full-time job. If you need work that badly, when the market's hot and everyone's hiring and we have low unemployment, that might not be the case, but there have been times like, say, when 2008, when things collapsed for a period of a year or two, that was pretty rough, right? So if you're trying to get hired in the 2008 recession, that should really be your full-time job, is to try and find a job. And so that does mean that if you're living in this world and you're just reading this thing over and over, you're not going to notice mistakes, and you're not going to notice, because it's just like, it's there. It's just there. So if you've got somebody that can proofread it or give you some feedback, very much to your benefit, and that will also help you with attention to detail, because they'll probably catch stuff that you might not. All right. So what to include? So general principles, name and contact, objectives or goals, personal statement, a sentence or two. Don't go crazy on that. Make sure it's not cheesy, kind of deal. Work history, specific skills, education. Take her to leave it on the education. Some people want to see it. Sometimes the requirement is a bachelor's degree. Sometimes the requirement is a master's degree. Sometimes the requirement is a PhD, and what you're trying to do and what you're trying to work. So make sure you got the relevant educational history if it matters. General principle is newest stuff on top, and work your way backwards. The way I have it here is typically how I'll organize things. Although I think on my I did a sample one. And I think I put education above specific skills. Doesn't really matter. It's once again, this falls into the personal preference, subjective. You ask 10 people, they'll give you 10 different answers. But make sure you're hitting those things, because that's generally what people that are hiring don't want to see. Best way to make a resume? That's ChatGPT. It's the answer to everything. So actually I did, I popped in a question to chat GPTs, like, how do I make a professional resume? And actually gave a really good answer. Clean, easy to read font, 10 to 12 points, bullet points, concise languages, consistent formatting, highlight your relevant, proofread, action verbs, so they even got the active language instead of the passive, professional summary, education, professional email address, and 1 to 2 pages. Now, I did this last because I didn't want to be influenced by chat GPT. So this was one of the last things I did in preparation for this, but I was like, hey, that's pretty cool. So there you go. Chat GPT, AI is taking over everything, including finding us work. Other starting points. So if you're not sure where to go, Word has a number of resume templates. Actually, I just whipped one up. I updated mine, if you want to call it that, as a sample on here, and I just basically picked the first nice looking resume template on Word. Same thing with Google. There's no lack of options. Lots of templates, plenty of things that you can find if you're at a loss what to do. Recruiters, I was going to throw that out to our recruiter hosts, because I know they're always happy to sit down and work with you on a resume. They have this vested interest in seeing you get hired.
I've never had a recruiter not pin me out. They completely. Like,
That's right. That's right.
That's my resume.
That's right. That's right. That's right.
Okay, when you want to put forward for those people, that's fine with me.
That's right. So they want to get you hired. They want you to look as good as possible. So that could be very helpful.
Please don't mind that.
Yes. You're an expert.
Yes.
You can also find business consultants or hiring managers. I think we've been asked a couple times to review students' resumes and stuff like that. And you just find somebody who knows what they're doing. Fiverr, you can even go on Fiverr. They've got a whole category of people that write resumes. You can pay someone to get a very nice professional looking resume. And I don't know, there's turn to the internet. I'm sure Reddit's got a ton of stuff, and but like there's Fiverr's got a whole category. People are happy to take your money and give you a nice looking resume. So plenty of places to start. Much easier than sitting there on a typewriter and typing it all out and then hope you didn't make a mistake. You have to retype the whole page, All right, so let's talk about some samples. Wesley was very generous and let me snag a copy of his resume, so we're going to pick his apart. So keeping in mind all the things I talked about, we're going to take a look at Wesley's resume. So he starts out with his contact information. He leads off with skills. He's got his education up here. He actually has a section for certifications. Once again, it depends on if it's relevant to what you're looking for. There are places that will require X certification. And then he starts in his experience. So here's his most current. We go on to page 2. So this is still his current. Then we go to ministry bands, and he had several roles at ministry bands. I'm going to page 3, and then we're down to some other stuff here. So just thinking through what I talked about as our principles, what do you like? What do you not like? What feedback? If you're looking at this as a hiring manager or something like that, what would be some feedback that you might give?
I don't care what you did from May 2014 to August 2014.
Yeah.
Guam 2014 to 2016 together is one block, and
Yep.
I just highlight that. It's way back. It's in the Wayback Machine.
That's right.
One of my career fortes has been in military, DoD, Kingsport. So last year alone, I actually worked for 3 different companies doing the same job. So I didn't bother to parse that out.
Right.
In my employment history, it's parsed out, but in my resume, I worked for the same contract, delivered to the same military customer. I didn't bother with, for 6 months with a subcontractor. So this way, the contracting stuff just changes with every kind of window.
So in this case, I've got a bullet point list of what I like and don't like on the next slide. What you're talking about is it's long and it is not necessarily relevant. Yeah. What does he do well? I know it's kind of hard to read some of this, but there are a couple things that he does really well here.
He has a good memory.
Yes, well, that's what I thought written down, so you have to remember it.
And it shows growth, right? So
Yes.
as you show that growth.
Yes. Yeah, so his positions are keep going up, he keeps getting more responsibility, yes, that's a great thing that his resume shows. It's sort of hard to read here, but he has active language all throughout. That was something for 3 pages, it's all stuff he's done that he's part of, that it's all active, which is great.
He's a TSM guy, I hire him anyway.
Let me put, okay, so it's good.
I
It's,
like this certification.
yeah, that's in his case, that works out really well, especially since he's got a bunch. He's got all active language. He's got specific numbers. I know it might not have showed up where, but he had a bunch of things that were showing specific numbers of projects and money and size of environment and whatnot. So like there's specific, he got some very specific where it was appropriate. And then it shows the career progression and growth. He's not static. He's not doing help desk for 20 years, although I know people who do that. And if that's what they want to do, that's great. No problem with that. But in this case, he's showing that he's actively trying to grow and improve and move up and what he's trying to do. Things that I would say is it's long and wordy, man. It's 3 pages. It's a lot of text.
It's 3 pages of the same stuff.
Yes, that's the other thing. Yes. Yes.
I have a 30-year career, and my resume is very long, but it's in biochemistry, and it's in government, and it's in IT, and I can't trim it down because being mayor and being sysadmin are completely different pieces.
Right. Right.
You were a mayor, yeah. So exactly, that's why my resume goes, wow, we're there.
So basically, like, if it were something that I was working on, I would consolidate the jobs. I might consolidate the target skills. Like if he's applying, like if he was using this to apply for a specific job, I'd look at what the job requirements are and then really focus on that because he's done a lot of things. Like Wesley's a great guy. He's very smart. He's done a lot of things, and so that can actually sometimes work against you when you have to narrow it down and apply for something specific.
He previously worked for one of my clients. Cool.
So in contrast, this is what I whipped up. So this is a Word template. I just picked one. I didn't do anything fancy to this. This is right out of the box. I did notice that I accidentally left in one spelling error, but I wouldn't include that. Yeah, I thought I had that taken. I don't erase that, but no, apparently not. So yeah, so this is a single page resume for me. What was your name again? Nathan. Okay, so what Nathan mentioned is actually really important. His work history doesn't necessarily match up to his resume. So there's at least 2 things that I have in work history that I'm not including on here. And depending on what I was applying to, I probably would remove the help desk. Because it was a 1.5 years, and yes, you got to show that you started somewhere, but I would probably expand these and drop the help desk. Like it's just not relevant anymore. That was 15 years ago. I'm long past help desk, right? So, and I mean, let's be honest, I was just mostly resetting passwords. That's what help desk does. It's at a bank. They don't let us touch anything.
You want to put the money.
Will also show growth again.
Yeah.
Maybe reduce the help desk down to those no details.
Yeah, and it would depend on what I was trying to do and what skills I wanted to highlight.
But I mean, when you go from IT consultant to president and CEO of IT company, it's a rounding error.
Yeah.
People skills either way, right? Oh.
Hopefully, I know plenty of people that don't, and they still decide it's just like, okay. So basically, I call this a shotgun resume. I'm just throwing everything up there. There's no direction, and the upside to what I'm doing is I could apply for a number of different things. Like it's not just system administration. I could apply for sales. I wouldn't want to do marketing because I don't like marketing. But there's any number of things that I could do because I'm already doing it now. Part of that just comes with owning a company, but part of it just comes with background and interests and other things that I've done on my own and wanted to learn how to do. So I would never submit this like this. It's too unfocused. But it hits what I'm wanting to do in terms of keeping it concise, keeping it relevant, and forcing me to really focus on whatever it is that I was applying for. So I'm happy with how this looks, but I would never submit it this way.
That's one thing that was very apparent, very clean,
Yes,
easy on the eye.
yes,
Like if we had one. We didn't have 70, but we had a position, we had 35 resumes, and you were right, I was just deleting. Somewhere I was just like.
if it's ugly or if they got, you know, like,
It's ugly.
can't
and
read it,
And I felt bad on myself, because I was like, I thought I'd give someone a chance, but
Nope.
it looks ugly. And it's ugly.
you have time. They have disqualified themselves by submitting something that is making it difficult on you to read.
I became what I hated most.
Welcome to the club.
Yeah, that's right. So you know what? It's all active language, it has specific numbers where it's appropriate. It shows career progression, it's concise. I would rework it for a specific job listing. And this is a shotgun resume. It has everything on there because I was just trying to throw together something real quick. So I would,
Please do not use all caps like that. Small caps is for a reason.
yeah, it's I won't blame it entirely on the template, but I just basically, I'm just gonna pick a template and roll with it and see how it turns out. So. Moving right along, this is my last slide. So things to avoid. Using that edgy email address you created as a teenager, you know, 420 Blaze guy at AOL. I mean, AOL, really? don't. Yeah, really. Yeah, make it professional. Please don't use the ridiculous thing that you did when you were a teenager. You know, like have a nice looking email address. I own my own domain. I own evenden.org. So I've got that as my vanity domain, if you want to call it that. And so if I'm sending anything out, it's Jonathan@evenden.org. That's like,
But
it
if
looks
you're,
professional.
but if you're in sales, it looks good to see that name in.
Yeah.
The domain. I mean.
Yep, absolutely.
It's a cheap piece of real estate to go yell alpha.
And it's one of those things that makes you distinguished
Yeah.
above and beyond the 420 Blaze guy.
Or just, you know, Joe Schmo at
Yes.
gmail.com.
Yep. Spelling mistakes and improper grammar. Spell check exists for a reason. Grammar check exists for a reason. Don't ever send it out. If there's a spelling mistake, just don't fix it. It's super simple and it makes you look really bad if you have it in there. Wrong resume or apply for the wrong job. That goes back to the lab technician who decided that for some reason, you know, help desk was the thing to go online. You know, you are very confused or you can't read. And then crazy fonts and colors. Make it readable, make it easy on the people who's got the stack of resumes that you know you want to jump out in the fact that you can read it.
Big red letters across the top.
Yes, you know. I mean, I guess unless it's a creative position, I've seen some pretty interesting creative people doing like just, you know, but that's different. They're showing how creative they can be. I want to get hired to do technical stuff. Right? Like that's not creative is not why I'm there. And not proofreading, no peer review. You definitely want to have a proofread and you definitely want to have someone else look at it. So those are things that I do. Once again, take it with a grain of salt. It's always this is what I found to be helpful. This is what I'm looking for when I'm hiring people. And this is what ChatGPT tells you. So we all know that that's what Skynet says is the way to go.
But Jonathan, you brought up a great point. I mean, it would be fun to see, I haven't touched with my resume in years, but it would be fun to see what it was like in high school when I got my college job and what it was like before I worked for the DoD. It would be great to see.
Yeah, last time I really had to send out my resume was basically after I got fired in 2011. And I had a 2-page resume. I look back at it now and I go, oh my goodness, I was basically like stuffing everything I ever did to hit that 2 pages to validate my existence because I've been in the industry for 6 years, you know, like
I saved the cat in the tree.
that's right. Now I've got tree climbing skills.
I got splinters.
That's right.
Yeah, I wasn't an expert at it, but I think you brought a lot of memories with this too.
The other thing I would add is go out, go to a stationery store buy 100% rag content, real paper. And you don't get a big gray crap from Walmart green. You know, go get some real quality paper with a watermark that has some heft to it. So when people pick it up, they kinetically feel that yours is different from the guy who, you know, just opened up the print. Go to Kinko's, have them print it off on the print. Don't run out there later.
But think about like where we're at, everybody gets a copy of that person's. There's no way that. No, that would get maybe helpful. If you got it, but it's, those little soft skills of, you know, that's something that can separate your resume from the stack, right? In a small organization.
It's funny, we used to go to those career fairs, I'm sure you guys posted on. And when they put your resume in a stack, they're like, wait, who are you again? And he went through it and he was able to pick it out because
Paper.
that's a great, that's not bad, yeah.
And because it means that you care about, you know, the subtext of that is that you care about this job. You know, you care more than that, because you went out and bought a $20 thing of paper instead of an $8. People, I mean, a lot of people will hold it and look for a watermark. There you go.
Any other thoughts or questions, Jerry? Any questions from the class? I just realized I hadn't screen shared.
No, they're working on a proof of performance on the command line right tonight.
Okay.
They're working hard too, and they're learning a lot that you have to practice to get it right.
Well, they should check out the yes command.
Chat GPT.
I told them all that a lot of you guys have, you started right where they are. And now you're doing great things for lots of people.
Excellent. Thanks, Jerry. Any other?
Okay, good. I'm gonna mute my mic here.
Any other thoughts, questions, comments?
I do want to talk to Jared.
Go for it.
Yeah, hey, Jerry, I'm gonna email you because we'd like to come see you guys again. If that's all right.
Okay, yeah, the capstone classes, this class could use some help and the capstone classes could also. The capstone class meets Wednesday nights at 6:15 at Hardin Valley here. And if I can ever get anybody, especially from Tech Systems or whatever, to come up at Strawberry Plains campus on Tuesday afternoons at about 3:30.
Okay.
We've gone through resumes. They're working on their mini small size 3x5 or 4x6 or business card size resumes now. But yeah, anything, have someone from if somebody's still there from Tech Systems, have them get in touch with me. Some of the people I knew at Tech Systems aren't there anymore.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good deal.
Yeah, great deal. Thanks.
And it never hurts to have business cards.
Anyone else? Any other thoughts?
I think it gets.
All right,
You did it.
You might have very good.
go for it.
Check Slack.
Huh?
Check Slack.
But check Slack. Oh, okay. Oh, Aaron has graciously shared his resume. and
So
said,
very
"Rosa."
quickly, Broken Temple Engine when I was doing this, so I only gave you the first page. The second page literally just has my script on it, nothing else, I just want to that, like. Because, I may have complicated everything in my resume template into latte. But.
Oh, well.
I take criticism on everything, including that.
That's
Okay.
great. If I gave you guys my resume, it would be,
This is also.
literally crap.
So, all right, so it's hard to, there's not an easy.
You're not
way-
liking the Slack.
I have it on my phone, but not. I will check Slack on my phone.
Good.
I can send it here.
He doesn't open browser windows on his.
No, I just,
What about emailing it to yourself?
I'm working on it.
He's in sales.
One of
I'm
many.
in sales too, Nate. There's no good saying that.
Ouch.
I have apparently, the CI is broken, so the version where I fixed the LaTeX template and CI doesn't work for us, so couldn't get the there you go.
Yes, wait for it to
You have a
show.
copy of it on our release server?
Not your overlay server.
On overleaf?
No, it's actually on Git repo.
Oh, I get it, okay, cool. We give you.
There's a YAML file and a text template and a LaTeX template, and the LaTeX template gets turned into video.
Okay,
I went a little silly with that.
Wins the intervention.
that's right.
I entirely did that, so if someone asked me something I could actually talk about because it is NDAs.
Can we stop recording?
No, I'm still recording. Give me just a second here.
Okay. Well, poor man. Eat a lot of pizza.
The more we eat, the less we have to guilt people into taking home.
That's right.
I'll just send it to myself.
Not teenagers at my house anymore, so.
I know, that's the problem, yeah. I've never had teenagers in my house. I was the last teenager in my house. So I don't have anybody to bounce off, my wife won't let me.
My kids are actually gonna both be here next week, so.
Oh, really?
I don't think kids gonna last out.
I should update this too, because this doesn't have my current decision on it.
Well. You know,
There it goes.
Yeah.
We have a third one now.
all right, here we go.
Doing the son's got a years. First series.
Oh,
And suddenly. Oh, I've never had it. Oh, there we go. Okay.
All right, so let's close PowerPoint here.
One is really open.
All right,
Okay.
so let's roast Aaron.
all right. Hey, run along.
Hey, Aaron.
Yeah.
You done messed up.
And it's so old now. It's not even fun.
I know.
I love it. Lucky.
I was just-
What font is that actually? Out of curiosity.
It's Terminus.
Okay.
That's its name. It's a fairly standard serif font, but it's one of the LaTeX standards.
I see people go like I did not put months on mine. Just trying to keep it general. Like, at this point, I've been, we're talking 5 years and 11 years, like months at that point, it doesn't matter. So that's sort of up to you if you want to put months at that point. That's a lot of stuff. Like there's a lot of text. You got the active language, developed, built, managed, operated, authored, worked, supported, extended, so that part's looking good. You've got specifics in terms of the technologies. I'd be curious if you could quantify more of the things you did. And that's where it can be tough. Like, if you're managing servers, if you're managing supporting users.
Yeah, and where's the line where I'm writing a file NDAs?
Okay, well, that's something to take into consideration. Yeah, depending on what you can and can't. That's why I was asking the question. What could be things?
Yeah.
How could you help draw attention
I
to
got
that?
the number of nodes on that other one down there. What I'm only doing. I know I did have some more specific numbers in some of these, and I cut them out to make it smaller. Based on size. But at one point, I was dropping 1,500 plus nodes on Puppet one.
It's got a 10-node Elasticsearch.
Yeah,
I would waste cycles on RHEL 5 through RHEL 7, right, or Solaris 10, 11, or various versions of Windows. I'll just put that in one.
yeah,
Yeah, RHEL, Solaris, XPUX, Windows.
Right.
yeah,
And maybe even in the skill section rather than.
Yeah, I mean,
yeah. I don't have a skills section on this one. The one before this had a skills section.
Okay.
But I cut it to get more room to fold items on.
Okay. I would consolidate. Like this whole thing is wordy.
Okay.
Like even like it's big block of text
yeah,
compared to mine visually had careful, like it's easier to delineate.
and indent, right? I mean, develop a worldwide instance, indent instance, it makes it easier on the eye.
Yeah.
So, Yeah, I mean, just some easy
There's
tweaks.
only so much you can do with Red Hat JBoss, not being exterior. It's just gobbledygook, no matter how you write it, you know.
So, yeah, and if you want some help on resumes, whatever, and we've had other people submit requests to us on Slack and whatnot, so.
My memory says there's a typo somewhere in user vision, and I can't remember where it is. Cause I remember I dumped into a word that was actually spelled right, that wasn't the word I was looking for. I can't remember what it was.
So you're talking about like automated tasks, is there anything you could quantify about that, like how many hours a day you saved, or how many tasks like how many Ansible? You know, like, is that something, like, are there ways you could quantify that?
I had to think about it. It's a lot of times, you know. By the time you automated the task, you forgot how long it took to do it manually. Or you automated the task to begin with, because you never wanted to do it manually.
Or anything, I would just say Ansibleized. Yeah, you know, because the people that know what Ansible is are gonna understand what that means.
Yeah.
Yes.
And it's gonna, you know, it's gonna plug into their thoughts. Oh, yeah, we want Ansible everything.
Okay, there's some specific feedback there. Thank you for letting us.
The other thing is it will scroll on that.
And this is only one, yeah, here.
The page break here.
Yeah, that's because I messed up the latte.
Yeah.
So ignore that. The actual current version Git has that, but also doesn't have CI installing one of the LaTeX packages it uses, so CI goes.
I still love you for doing this in LaTeX.
I actually, so my was in LaTeX. I went to LaTeX in Mississippi because I'm good. And I figured, because I think the resume that I used for L1 was LaTeX. The one I used for VRX which was almost entirely skills based. I did in Pages on OS X.
Wow.
I really like Pages
Wow.
actually. But I didn't have a Mac when I was working at the one for L1. And so I didn't even want that.
Excellent, okay. So, all right, well, great, well, I appreciate you.
Thank you, man.
Yeah, any other thoughts or questions, or anything before we end, So, all right, well, thanks, Jerry.
I mean, I think you and I probably have a similar problem, which is how do we edit hours down?
Yes. Yeah, it's like at what point do I stop and